there were a number of people who pointed out they have other things they're doing. It was really hard for me to believe, mostly having to do with going to visit next generation of their family. So I'm assuming that they've jumped right to the end of this study and are taking action at working with generations into the future for this great transition. But they did, several of them ask to record. So if it doesn't freak you out when you get into your small group, go ahead and record. Karine, I think we're going to go into our breakouts, and then just cross off that word triads.
No worries.
Okay.
My group is going to be small, so I don't know that we would even have 2 triads. So
That's a little O.
Yes.
so we will have small but mighty group.
And that's okay. So
I'm still setting up the room, so give me just a second here to get the rest of you in.
Oh, it's not any problem.
They're getting close.
that's right.
Well, welcome all of you
Back it out.
to session 5. This is where the book shifts from imagining a possible future based on a long and deep and wide vision of assessment of what's likely to be. And we move into, given that, trying to imagine what a great transition might look like and the implications of that for us as humans, for our communities, for our descendants, for our communities and countries and organizations. And I think we'll find in these next 2 sessions, Dwayne has done an interesting job just kind of highlighting some of the possible opportunities and implications for us as human beings, and has left a lot of room for us to imagine other dimensions that are going to be really important. So I'm going to ask Patman to get us started with a moment of meditation.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
I hope you can all hear me well.
Yeah.
Before we begin our session, let's take a few minutes to send our minds home to the realm of the body. Please turn off your microphones so no one gets distracted by random sounds, please. You are all invited to follow us into this silence as your mind observes the sounds and vibrations of the body. I hold my spine erect. I make my feet and the rest of me comfortable and relaxed. I invite you to close your eyes and surrender to relaxation within the safety of your space. I take a deep breath and hold it a moment, and then I let it go, let it all go. My shoulders release their tensions as they gently settle down. My jaws release its tension. My breath slows down. My mind follows the breath from the time it enters the nostrils until it also is released. The remaining tensions in my cells go out with it. You are now a silent witness in the quiet realm of your body. The breath ebbs and flows. as it takes away your stress that has found its home in your body parts. Guide your mind to the region of your body, starting with the top of your head, and slowly scan your body till you reach the tips of your toes, looking for pockets of tension. At every breath, release those tensions and your thoughts to empty silence. Keep scanning your body, releasing your worries and bodily tension. Keep going deeper and deeper into a very relaxed state. When the time comes to return back, I will sound a chime so you will know.
So now Sunny's going to send us into our groups. We'll be there for 75 minutes total. After 73 minutes, you'll get a 2-minute warning to wrap up your conversation. God willing, and the creek don't rise, you're ready to share screen and show a video in your group, and I'm sure you'll cope with it very well. So Sunny, if you could go ahead and send us into our groups.
Returning, not really.
This meeting is being recorded.
Is this meeting being recorded?
Yeah.
The meeting I was just in was not being recorded.
I'm
It-
sorry.
All
It would
right,
take a
folks.
co-host in there to record it. I did in the middle wake up and record the rest of ours.
Ours was recorded, but I didn't ever push stop. So hopefully it stopped when we all came back here.
I think it does that. Yeah.
Isn't it wonderful to live in this electronic media world where you feel like a 6-year-old all over again?
Yeah.
So next week, we take on the last half of the foundations for the great transition. And the assignment is to pause several times each day to notice the aliveness around you.
Mhm.
You may want to set alarms on your iPhone for you to do this.
Hey.
jot down how this shifter, and then read pages 131 to 155. And I would suggest those of you who understand this, try charting. Because it's really easy to get sucked into
And it-
excerpts and intuitions and not see the structure of what's being said. And select a short excerpt for possible sharing with the group. And I would like now to ask Edwin if we would close our session with a brief dedication. Hopefully Edwin is still online.
Yes, he is. Well, I'd all ask you just to take a second or a minute or something to become present with your presence. And that something is actually, that you need to do is actually nothing. This is a song I wrote decades ago now, I guess. So some of you may, probably not, recognize the structure of a certain course called RS1 behind this song. It's in secular language. The tune is a Norwegian American folk song called Ole Anna. What I'm going to do is double line each verse, one line at a time. I will read it twice, and you folks can join me on the second iteration of the reading of the line. In the meantime, I'd like everyone to mute yourself. So we can, if you all wish to sing this on those second lines, then we can do it as a group. And by muting ourselves, we won't be causing, well, chaos is part of the universe, but anyway. And then on the chorus, the first time through, I will double line it as well. And the other times I'll just sing it through once, recite it and sing it. It's going to be kind of both. And the chorus comes up about 5 times. So here we go. Oh, to live the life of freedom. Oh, to live the life of freedom. That's the only way for me. That's the only life for me. Rather than illusion's tool. Rather than illusion's tool. In any form of slavery. In any form of slavery. Reality we're choosing. Reality we're choosing. To always be your daring ones. To always be your daring ones. We will fear no one but thee. We will fear no one but thee. And smile at death because we're free. And smile at death because we're free. Oh, to live the life of caring. Oh, to live the life of caring. That's the only way for me. That's the only way for me. Than to be the fool secure. Than to be the fool secure. Who strives for meaning needlessly. Who strives for meaning needlessly. Reality we're choosing. To always be your daring ones. We will fear no one but thee. And smile at death because we're free. Oh, to be the ones accepted. Oh, to be the ones accepted. That's the only way to be. That's the only way to be. Refusing to divide us up. Refusing to divide us up. Or idolize morality. Or idolize morality. Reality we're choosing. To always be your daring ones. We will fear no one but thee and smile at death because we're free. Oh, to love both all and neighbor. Oh, to love both all and neighbor in the way that finds us here, in the way that finds us here. Then hold on to what we do, then hold on to what we do, or close our eyes and plug our ears, or close our eyes and plug our ears. Reality, we're choosing to always be your daring ones. We will fear no one but thee and smile at death because we're free. Oh, to be timely communion. Oh, to be timely communion. First responding to the new. First responding to the new. Than to seek but for ourselves. Than to seek but for ourselves. Or forge defeat with all we do. Or forge defeat with all we do. Reality, we're choosing to always be your daring ones. We will fear no one but thee and smile at death because we're free. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Enjoy the intimations of the great transition we're moving toward. And don't go crazy with your aliveness in this coming week. And those of you who want to stay on, I'd like to invite us. Thank you for those of you who need to go. Those of you who want to stay on, especially the group leaders, who I just want to celebrate and thank you. We'll spend a couple of minutes talking about what happened today and what's needed tomorrow, and especially how we begin the process of speaking back to what's going on. So thank you.
Jim, do you want the recording to continue or should we stop it?
Yes. That all depends who's willing to edit.
Can I ask a quick question before I go? What do you mean responding to what's going on? Do you mean societally or do you mean in this group?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean
What
that.
do you mean?
Who asked that question?
It's Deva.
Oh. Both. I think we consider this next couple of minutes as kind of a chance to share out what we're noticing, both in the immediate and in the longer term in terms of what's going on, so that we can help ourselves be focused in the most helpful way to next week and the week beyond. Do you have a thought?
No, I meant more, is it in regard to this group and how the group is working, or are you talking about the world at large?
Yes, and everything in between. It's kind of like,
But in this time,
anyone, what caught your attention?
Yeah, Karen.
in this time, we tend to focus more on the group and what's
Excellent.
within the group.
Thank you. I'm gonna go. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Goodbye.
How many groups were able to show the video?
Who did?
Anybody did not show the video? Wow. Well, forget the great transition. We're getting better with Zoom.
Yeah.
How'd it go today?
Good.
Mhm.
I think this was a much more uplifting time than the others, and that the conversations were
In what
very
way,
engaging.
Corinne? In what way was it uplifting, Corinne?
I'm just thinking about aliveness, and I think there's I really appreciated some of the depth of people sharing about spirituality and where they see themselves growing in the journey of aliveness.
Mhm.
Somebody else?
Well, to Corinne's first comment, was a lot more fun to talk about being alive than being dead.
Even though we're supposed to smile?
Mm-hmm. Even though, yeah.
Arma, your comments on our last session about when do we get a chance to speak back have been occurring to me. There's a difference between taking a course where somebody is trying to imprint you with a certain perspective, and doing a study where you're trying to create an active sort of dialogue. Are you building a list of what's on your list of areas where you'd like to find a way to speak back or engage more in the dialogue with the author?
Were you asking me, Jim, or?
I was, as a matter of fact, or anyone
Okay.
else.
Well, today's session was basically, to me, it was more of revisiting a lot of common ground that we all have shared, and less about grappling with book, because the thing is that the issues he was touching in the book were also things that we've been on. So it was good, in that sense. And I did ask that question about, what's the author saying and how do we push back? But the conversation didn't go like that. I appreciated going through the pages 100 to 130, and yeah, I do still have some questions, but they're kind of minor. But I still see where the book is still going at it from a man-centered perspective rather than a life-centered perspective. That is, the assumption still is the after the transition, the planet, we are still in charge. We are still number one. We are still the most important thing that lives. And I don't see that being challenged or in some ways. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be important. We are, but I don't see the newness coming there, because I do think that is if the transition is the big disaster that we are expecting it to be, and things totally turned around, then this is a time when things can be recreated, where we look at other species not just as stuff to keep in our pantry, but as beings that have their life, and as they say in Buddhism, let all beings be happy, even if you have to eat one or two of them. But that's not a priority in today's world. And so anyway, so that's the one place where I don't see a push.
Did you just say Buddhism, let all beings be happy, even if we need to eat one or two of them?
Yes. At least let the rest of them be happy rather than all sitting in a poultry shed.
it's so difficult it's so easy to continue to hold on to some positive image of the future that only takes into account a part of reality, like the dimension of eating one another.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Let all beings be happy. I'm writing this down. Even if we eat one or two of them.
Well, I felt like in our team this time, Martin, you can see if you're
He prefers
you're
Martin.
hearing, Martine, you can,
Yeah, Martine.
if your hearing is heard the same thing. I felt like we were expanding the envelope beyond just agreeing with the book. It was not about I mean, we didn't ask the question, how do you disagree with this book or anything?
Mhm.
But in the sense of this time we were expanding our conversation, not limited by the book, but the book was a piece of our information, but we were expanding beyond that, which is in certain ways the first time we've done that.
Mhm.
So I felt so far in the study. The rest of the time I felt we were really trying to get inside of his story and our agreement or whatever understanding of his story. Whereas today we were not, that was not the limit of our conversation.
Someone else.
Yeah, our group was beautifully led by Karen, and she definitely, we were definitely in the presence and awareness of the book. And we included that, but we did, in the dialogue, she managed to have us transcend it. It was beautiful, Karen.
In what
Oh,
way?
thank you.
We didn't depart from the book, but at the same time, we added wisdom that the book did not present.
Mhm.
Bob, what's happening to you with this? You're the most accredited scientist in the group here. How's this going with you, man?
Who are you talking to?
Bob.
Bob,
Robert Watts, the fellow next to
That's
you.
me.
we heard an excerpt from his book tonight and
Oh,
enjoyed
cool.
it very much.
Hi, Bob. Good to see
Hey,
you.
Yeah.
This was engineering response to global climate change?
no.
No.
No,
The book
It's-
included all that.
it's called Growing Up Southern.
Oh, yeah.
Someone else. Sonny, what group were you in?
I was in with Dharma.
David, did you succeed in getting into a group this week?
He did. He was in with us. He's on group 2.
Yeah, I was in there. I think one thing that I don't know if it's a critique, but his main focus on the future, or recommendation on the future, has to do with volunteer simplicity. And certainly we all can refer to people or that are leading the way in that, and we all can point to things that we're individually doing to simplify our footprint. But in terms of wider society, that's the most difficult thing to bring about. And I think every time he brought it up, he said, well, if you want to learn more about volunteer simplicity, read my first book. And that was it. He could have put more about it in this book. I'm complete.
We did talk about the trend toward minimalism. It's another word for voluntary simplicity these days.
Yes, he did.
We have the second half of part 4, Foundations of the Great Transition.
mhm.
And then a session where we look to the future. Any thoughts on how we bring this home?
I would like to, are you talking about, I think next week we have a structure that's defined like we have in the past, and we can continue to evolve that individually. But in the session 7, I propose that at least part of that be a large group session where there could be some dialogue perhaps around feedback for the Choosing Earth people. And whether it's in a large group or small group, but to also have some of the discussion that Jean raised last session about how this group moves forward with some of the ICA work that's been done in the past.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else?
Yeah, the other area that I did not did not see the book covering is that it was very much on touching the individual, the domestic, the family, the psychology. But when you think of the problem that we face, the transition and all of that, there is a huge area which has to do with relationships between countries, you know, for instance, like countries that get their income through selling armaments, you know, which is many of the countries, and therefore need to have this go on. You know, where does those things get touched on, you know, and or you know, how does where does all this happen, you know? Because I don't see a way where those areas get addressed. Because if you're going to address those areas, then there's going to be it is not just people growing up and you know, from adolescence to adulthood. It has to do with nation states no longer having you know, the power play and all of that going on, you know, where one nation has to dominate the world. You know, that whole kind of mindset. And if after this transition, whatever happens, if we are going to be back in the same with all those same dynamics going on, then this will continue. So the book doesn't go there, you know. And why I'm saying that is because that area has to be addressed somewhere. If not in this book, then somewhere.
Thank you.
You know, so.
Yeah, I think you're saying our institutions need to also do the growing. Like, for example, our media and other institutions that support our society. Higher education, K through 12 education. I don't know, lots of parts of our society need to do that growing. And refusing to accept the typical party line of the corporate culture, and speaking back to it as needed. So it's not only the personal growing up, it's the institutions and our nation and the nations. So it's very complex and challenging, issue about
Yes, and it is
how we're going to
also
get there.
as individuals where we stand, because we are the ones who make up the institutions.
Right.
The whole issue of economic systems. Are you a capitalist? Are you a communist? Are you a what? Because all of that is still going to affect the way the world goes. And even if we are talking about individuals, we all stand somewhere.
Yeah.
So Dharma,
Yeah.
when are you going to write this book for us?
Wow.
You are the writer.
Somebody else, your thoughts, reflections. Martine, what's going through your mind after today?
Well, we had a very long discussion of how we communicate with trees, which was quite good. We had to connect a little bit with the whole concept of aliveness and what brings us to some interconnection to all things around us. But I've had discussions with my biochemist brother-in-law, who one of the things I'm doing is I've bought several copies of the book and I'm sharing it with my family members. And then having a discussion with them. And so my biochemist brother-in-law read the book completely. And then, we had a conversation on Facebook about, but the interesting thing was that he was very focused on this section of the book, the one that we were talking about tonight, being overly vague. So from a scientific standpoint, he was saying, well, that portion of the book skipped over into the metaphysical, as it were. But overall, I had a good conversation with him about that. But I would say that what we did today also was talk about the way that we are trying to take what we're learning and share it. Everybody in our group was engaged in, and when they were talking about their timeline, they were engaged in talking about, here's how I'm sharing this information, or these issues, or this work, or this conversation. So we're all doing that to a certain extent. And even if we stopped at this point, it would have been great for the folks in our group, just relative to we're adding these concepts and this thinking to what we're doing right now. And that's good. And I think we should continue that over the next 2 sessions.
Thank you. Nancy, how about you?
Well, I was kind of impressed with the final question that we asked in our group, which was, how might you talk about this with others? And I was trying to think a way to now push that in the next session, somehow, to how do you envision actions? How do you vision some actions that you could possibly take that would affect institutions or nations or international affairs? I mean, we don't often think through how we could do something that would affect international affairs. I'm not sure we could get to that level, but how could we do something that would affect an institution or our nation or our town, for that matter?
There's a strange facilitator type person named Craig Freshley, who I don't know how I got in his mailing list, but he sends something out every day for 10 years about how to have better group work. And today he sent something out about the committees in Congress that are working on what's a better way for Congress to operate. And I didn't know there was such a thing. But it was very interesting to see that. And I found myself thinking, remember a couple of sessions ago, we watched that little video of Dwayne talking about lift and how important lift was, you know, in terms of something as this old world goes like this, there's this movement like this that moves it forward. And I found myself thinking, what would it be like to look into and document that movement of lift, where it is? I mean, you know, I had a real awakening experience with both Gene Watts and Bob Watts, you know, back in the day. But I mentioned earlier the engineering response to global climate change. That was like 1977, Bob, was it?
What year did we do that?
Do what?
Engineer, what year did you write the book on engineering response to global climate change?
Gosh.
It's been revised since
Yeah,
that.
oh,
first.
yeah, but I mean, it was like, it was like 40 or 50 people who were prominent people in the fields of different fields of engineering going,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
we know this is going to happen and how are we going to deal with it? And it's probably going to happen quicker than politically we acknowledge it and stuff. But it would be interesting to try to document the dimensions of the lift thing and not as, you know, and not come at it just from the perspective of, oh, well, nobody's doing anything. We got into this section on waking up. Wow.
On what?
Waking up.
There's an amazing effort that's gone on over the past 30 years around describing a different level of consciousness and working at helping our species wake up. And then on the growing up, I mean, it would be interesting to try to document the efforts that have gone on trying to bring this forward, both in the sense of what's worked and what doesn't work. I mean, those of us who are connected with the ICA, if our dreams had come true, this wouldn't be a problem. But with all the effort, you know, with all the effort we put in, the idea was there was going to be this massive awakening and response and global resurgence, and everything was going to be glorious. And it never happened. You know, we were going to do 24 demonstrations around the world, and people would go look at those, and their hearts would be changed, and life would be different. And we did the 24 demonstrations, and a lot of people looked at it, but there was no big woomph. And we're still in the midst of, we need a big woomph. It'd be interesting to see why we don't have one already, or what it's in a way to help understand what it's going to take to get that big woomph. Anyway.
One
Yeah.
book written recently was by Melinda Gates called The Moment of Lift. I don't know if people have seen that book, but I found it in Africa in a bookstore, and it's a great book. But I'm wondering if we could also consider engaging in dialogues with countries that have best practices in, say, nonviolent communication, or say in stewarding the earth, or and so on. Let's see, I was just in a conversation where some of the ICA people up in Toronto took a gravel pit and created gardens out of it. I mean, that would be, I would put that in the best practices column. But I like to really take a look at other countries and their practices as possible ways to step into the future on things like, especially climate change.
Hmm. Anything else before we close?
You could say this is what the big woof looks like.
What does that mean?
It means if we hadn't done what we did 50 years ago, we wouldn't be in as good a shape as we're in now. Rather than, oh my God, we're in terrible shape now.
Yeah.
We're in the shape that we're in.
We did
Anyway.
X, we got Y.
Well, we got connected here.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd like to look at the countries that have or at least the one Buddhist country with the happiness index. And the list of policies that you have, it's a list you got to check off that any new policy has to meet all of these criteria or they don't do it. And it's powerful. And I keep forgetting which country it is. I know.
Isn't it Bhutan?
It's either
Bhutan.
Nepal or
It's
Tibet.
Bhutan,
Yeah.
yeah.
There used to be
Bhutan.
Tibet was also Buddhist, but China
Yeah,
dealt with that.
Nepal and Tibet are also, well, I guess that's Tibet is where the Dalai Lama is.
Yeah.
Oh, Dharamsala. Yeah.
Dharamsala.
All right.
Well, in the,
Okay.
we should be done, but the next week we'll end with the list of the 12 action items that Dwayne actually recommends. But I think, and you know, it's hard for ICA not to do this action stuff. We are action oriented, action focused.
So
Somehow
at this
by
age,
nature.
we plan a lot and don't always do as much.
But if we could
So-
look at instead of, you know, there are a lot of people doing action stuff, more than there are people focusing on what will enliven those that are doing it rather than to try to be the ones that do it. What has to happen interiorly to individuals that give them that energize them so that when they are participating or suggesting or relating to really the billions of people who are really where we started, focused on actions. They may not know what they're doing, but they focus on planning and actions, decisions, and stuff like that.
I
At
do
our
have-
We're going to
ages,
continue that. So what is it that we can do to enliven individuals so that they don't end up just again, like, in another place?
Thank you.
I have something to read if I could. It had to do when I was watching the George Floyd verdict and how I knew that what the verdict was going to be. There was a woman by the name of she called herself the gatekeeper, which was that she saw the memorial as sacred ground, and she wasn't going to let anybody, deface it. And I thought that was a great, great image. And then I wrote this. Here's my new mantra. For God, there is no time, but he knows what time it is, capital T. And divine action flows from that. For God, there is no space, but place he knows. All places are sacred places. It just takes an event to make them so. This is for the George Floyd Memorial Site. It is now sacred ground.
Mm. Yeah. Yes.
Enjoy the week, folks. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the
Thanks,
energy you're
everyone.
putting into this.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you, Jim.
Anybody that wants to edit the video, send me an email. I'll send you a copy.
Thank you, Jim and Evie. Thank you.
And anybody else that saved it for your small group, send me a link, because a number of people were too busy visiting grandchildren and things like that to participate. And they wanted to have.
They may want to see the breakouts.
They wanted to
I'll send
have
you what I
I
have.
got here.
videos.
You did. All
Is the
right.
chat
Bye,
saved?
everyone.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Goodbye.
See you later, Jim.